Yeah, so anyway, after I met with him, we really diversified my portfolio, and I've been making a killing lately. So anyway, what are you doing for Halloween? It's right around the corner.
So I think we were going back and forth, but we settled on, first family Halloween, it's got to be a theme kind of thing. So,
of course.
So yeah, Ariana is going to be Snow White and I'm going to be Prince Charming. Wait, was the prince in Snow White, was that Prince Charming or was that Cinderella?
Oh, Jesus God.
I don't remember.
I'm not a Disney movie guy.
I don't remember. I'm the prince in Snow White. That's what I am.
The prince in Snow White. Well, yeah. I'm sure if anybody was going to correct you, it would have been done by now. I'm assuming you've made purchases on the costumes, right?
Yes. Well, no, yes. So I got his. I just don't know what his name is because I haven't seen Snow White since I was like freaking 5 years old.
So you're the male lead of Snow White?
Yeah, I'm the prince and she's my princess.
Isn't that Prince Charming? No, I thought that was. No, I'm getting who's the bitch with the 7 dwarves?
That's Snow White.
Then who is the Sleeping Beauty? That's Snow White too, right?
Maybe Prince Charming is Sleeping Beauty.
I think it's Sleeping Beauty. Fuck.
I don't know. Sounds like we need to brush up on our Disney.
I'm not too fond.
I do because I have a daughter.
I'm not too fond of kids, so I'm not going to be that in depth.
Anyway, enough about my boring dad Halloween. What are you doing for Halloween?
Dude, I'm going
to. What's your costume?
I'm going to. I'm not wearing a costume. I'm going to fucking a wedding.
What?
Yeah. Believe that shit.
Who the fuck gets married over Halloween?
That's what I said. I said, who's going to throw away this festive time of year for obligations of love?
Well, listen, are they at least going to do like a Halloween theme with their wedding? So like during the reception, everybody has a costume? That would be cool. That would be like a twist on the wedding, right?
No, they're not. It's a goddamn suit. I'm going to be in a suit and a tie, bundled up, because it's going to be up north. It's a destination wedding. Well, for us, it's in their backyard. But, I mean, it's a destination wedding for us. We got to travel, and, packing for me is just such a hassle.
Listen, David, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like that should be happening during Halloween.
Dane, I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but don't do what I'm doing. Like, I want you to go
out during Halloween?
Listen. I saw you bust out that little thing over there. This is a real man's knife. All right? You want to get Indiana? You get Indiana. You go full bore.
Listen.
Okay.
Okay. I'll say this. All right.
Go big or go home.
Not a lot of people have this much blubber on them that this can't get to where it needs to go. Okay. Sometimes there's overkill and you just don't need it.
Listen, you're not cutting through much shrubbery with that little guy.
Listen, it's like breasts. Okay, anything more than a handful and you're wasting it.
Okay? I disagree. You got another hand too.
Anything more than however many inches this is,
I say,
and you just don't need that. I mean, unless you're trying to stab the person through the person that's standing in front of you behind them, that's just totally.
Well, if you're not an open-minded person, you think like that. But if you do think like that, then you might need something a little more sized up. Is all I'm saying.
Well, listen, anyway, let's get back on track to the important stuff. Why in the hell you're going to a wedding over Halloween? Whose idea was this, first of all?
Apparently 2 people that are in love.
Obviously the brides.
Apparently 2 people that are in love.
They couldn't be in love one of the other 51 weeks out of the year? They had to be in love during Halloween when...
They didn't check with my TripAdvisor, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
That's for sure.
Inconsiderate.
Borderline rude is what it is. My gift to them is them, me not throwing a temper tantrum in the middle of their wedding. Screwing up my favorite holiday.
You are a good guy.
I do. I'm better than most, but not as good as some. But with all that being said, hopefully you guys are doing something very fun and festive for the Halloween season, dressing up like little slutty witches and doctors or whatever you can fit a G-string to nowadays. Anyway,
tickles your fancy.
Oh, it tickles your other things as well. So we've got Culture Corner this week. Yes. It is going to be the Big Mac attack.
Douglas Mackey?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Big Mac. You get it?
No.
You're not a big humor guy. You're not big on humor. Okay. I got you.
Listen, I enjoy it. I'm not too astute at creating it.
That's fine. That's fine. Just enjoy it then.
Yeah.
From now on. Laugh at my jokes, goddammit.
That's right.
Maine is Vivek outclasses an NPC Karen.
Not hard to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, with those two top... Can I borrow your straw for a second?
Sure.
Thanks, buddy.
Just for you. We're going to have to figure that out later.
Yeah, we'll do it later. We'll do that later. You want to just jump in?
Let's jump in. Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 169. Happy Halloweeny.
Happy Halloween!
Which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/169. You can get the podcast on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, and then you can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. I believe, yes, this whole episode, I think, is safe for YouTube. We're still in our 90 days.
It's so spooky.
So,
will we die on YouTube? Fuck you, YouTube.
Yes. So on today's episode, happy Halloween,
Happy
y'all.
Halloween.
By the way, we made sure that Nameless Faceless Guy and Chris got this out to you on
Please.
Halloween. So
if this comes out after Halloween,
forget those guys.
egg on their faces, huh?
If this comes out after, we're looking for new audio and video producers.
So if you know anybody,
yeah.
do we have an email?
We do.
That's how engaged in my own podcast I am.
Don't give me more opportunities to shout out the email list. So this week our two segments are Culture Corner and the Main. And Culture Corner, we're talking about, this happened a couple weeks ago at this point. But I want to say we talked about this when he was initially charged, but now he has been found guilty and is going to jail for 7 months and then I believe 2 months of probation. Douglas Mackey. If you don't remember who Douglas Mackey is, he was the guy, and he wasn't the only one, by the way, which is going to be important for the rest of this segment, is there were people on his side of the ledger that were Trump supporters, and there were also people on the other side of the ledger that were Hillary supporters that were doing the exact same thing and not going to jail.
But Dane, how is that possible?
Because
fair and balanced.
We have two tiers of justice in this country. Anyway, Douglas Mackey, his grand crime that earned him 7 months in a federal penitentiary was he shared several posts on Twitter throughout the 2016 campaign, and it was still called Twitter at that time, where he encouraged Hillary voters to text via text message their vote for Hillary. Ostensibly, the joke is get them to think that they're texting their vote to Hillary because then they won't actually vote, and then that's one less vote for Hillary. Ha ha ha. Now, the funny thing is that people on both sides of the aisle were doing this, and nobody thought at the time that it was anything more than a troll, a joke to just kind of mock the other side and try to get them to vote less. Nobody took it seriously. Nobody thought that there was any criminal activity going on. It was just, this guy trying to get people not to vote for Hillary. And for that, Mr. Mackey was brought up on charges of election interference. And unfortunately, just a couple weeks ago, he was found guilty. And now he's going to spend 7 months in prison and have 2 years of probation thereafter. Weep for the culture, people. Weep for anything that you thought America was in terms of the land of the free, free speech and things like that, because the regime is getting increasingly drastic with their measures in terms of punishing things other than full-throated support for the regime.
Ew, gross. Yeah, I used to have this phrase. There's only 3 undefeateds in this world: Father Time, Mother Nature, and the internet. But thanks to the government, now the internet isn't even going to win anymore. The only thing that can take down that is the powers that be. And now it seemed like what Mackey did was pretty benign, and the jokes were kind of funny, and it was a good troll. Trolling used to be, holy shit, South Park did that too. South Park called this one the Swedes and trolls on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where they sleuth them out and like out them and their real name, and they dox them, and like people show up and murder them. That's basically.
Well, it was a Black Mirror episode too.
Well, I'm sure it's a bunch of different episodes. But what I'm saying is that if you can't even make a meme about somebody, you can't even dissent, you can't even question, you can't even. I mean, it's not like thank God they haven't found out about this podcast yet. Oh well. Oh wait, our 2 strikes and we're hanging by a thread. Our sanity's hanging by a thread over here. So again, it's not. They're not going to cancel the Joe Rogans. They'll try. They're not going to cancel the large podcasts that already have an up and growing one, but it's not them that they're after. That was the cause to them curing the disease of the dissenting voice. And now I think I just read another article on NBC that a judge just bolstered the Biden's movement to have communications with social media posts or social media companies, specifically on like
the censor posts and shit.
Basically
posts, everything that the Twitter files confirmed.
Correct. And now they're going to go for it carte blanche. It's already happening in Britain. They've already under their legislation, they arrested 3,000 people last year on social media just from things that they posted. I know it sounds dystopian. They're introducing legislation in Canada that we covered too, I believe, about they can just shut off your bank account if you do something that they don't agree with. They did that in England too, or in Britain too. So the United Kingdom, I should say. I don't know how many times this has to start happening for people to start waking up and go, hey, this is really happening now. Like, I know it sounded far-fetched when we started saying 1984 and, doublespeak and like truth is lies and lies is truth, whatever the hell they were saying. Now it's coming to fruition. Now you're starting to see the first symptoms of this illness that is going to start affecting some people, and people need to start taking it again. What was that old adage under the Patriot Act? Well, I don't have anything to hide. Of course they can go through my emails.
Yeah, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
Today. But don't remember the woke crowd, which is, on the same team as these people running these kinds of bills through your Congress. You're never woke enough. What was woke yesterday isn't woke today.
Yeah.
So eventually they're going to come for you and your kids too. Right. It's just a matter of time.
And, I saw one of the Krastenstein brothers on X. I don't remember which one. They're both equally retarded, so it doesn't matter.
R word.
Really? Yeah, well, that's going to get us nuked on YouTube. Hey, Chris, can you beep that one out? I don't want to get nuked on YouTube. Anyway, one of them had somebody said something to the effect of, it's just jokes, it's memes. I can't believe he's going to jail for that. The common sense, rational, sane human thing to say about this is nobody belongs in a cage for 7 months for sharing something on Twitter. And Krasenstein responded was, and so what if his troll actually got somebody to not vote? Would it still be okay then?
Yeah.
And two things I thought about that. The first thing is, First of all, in the trial itself, it was never proven that the troll actually accomplished anybody not voting. So nobody was actually tricked into doing the bad thing that apparently underlied this entire thing. That was the first thing.
Could you imagine them trying to prove that in court? Did anyone in America get a random text circa November 2015 that just said Hillary Clinton? Anyone? Anyone in the United States or anybody in the world? Did anyone just get a random Hillary Clinton text? Get back to us immediately.
That would have been would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that situation. So first of all, they never even proved that the alleged bad thing that he did actually happened. But second thing is, let's assume that it did. Because Krasenstein, like the rest of these brainlets, they're operating on this premise of the democracy is sacred. These are democracy is sacred cult members. So for them, it is a crime of high treason to dupe somebody out of exercising their God-given right to vote, and that justifies locking somebody in a cage for 7 months or longer. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, just think about the democracy is sacred crowd, right? They are operating under the assumption that the people, all people above an arbitrary age line of 18, are equally qualified to elect people on an entire smorgasbord of different policies. If all you have to do is reach the age of 18, and you are automatically qualified to weigh in just as much as anybody else on what fiscal policy should be, how involved the United States should be in every conflict around the world, what the marginal tax rate should be, what the exact calibration of regulations there should be on industry to make sure that the global temperature doesn't increase by 0.06 degrees Celsius over the next 100 years. If you make it to 18, you're qualified to vote on every single aspect of that. That assumes a pretty decent amount of intelligence from the general electorate if you are one of the Krasenstein brothers. And yet, that same person who's equally qualified to vote and weigh in on all of those subjects is the same person who is apparently stupid enough to fall for the trick of vote for your politician instead of showing up to the voting booth on X day or X time. Again, if your system of democracy is not only so sacred, but so robust, and it's the most important thing, and it's the way that the people have a voice and make sure that their politicians are accountable to them and that their voice is heard, if it is so fragile, so weak, that a simple sharing of a joke on Twitter can convince somebody out of this sacred right and duty to vote, and that person is so stupid to fall for it, that person should also have the same amount of credibility given to their vote as somebody who's actually paying attention to the world and what's going on and the ancillary effects of policies that adversely affect people instead of help them, then I suggest to you that maybe your cult doesn't stand on a very firm footing, Krasenstein, and the rest of the people that think like you, that think that he deserves to be in a cage because he shared something funny, or maybe you didn't find it funny, but it wasn't in support of your candidate. Again, this is hearkening back to a few weeks ago where Krasenstein said, I'm a good guy because I think that the rule of law should be upheld in all situations. No, once again, you're a piece of shit. You want people locked in cages like animals because they didn't support your political candidate.
Well, he's full of shit too.
You are the worst type of person this species has to offer.
Because that same side, all throughout 2016, was shouting down that Donald Trump wasn't a legitimate president, wasn't really. He colluded with Russia. He did things that he cheated somehow, some way, because Hillary should have won that election. And then all of a sudden, another election comes up and they go, there's no way that we can lose this. Our democracy is on the line. So now that our democracy is on the line, we're going to go so undemocratic and this election. And you might be saying, David, how did they do that?
Chris, please also beep that out, because for saying that will get us in trouble on YouTube.
Okay.
Keep saying it, but just beep it out, Chris. Beep out the rigged word.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, you brought it up in the pre-show ramble. And it's a good point. What about the 51 agents from the FBI saying that the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't a real story? Russian misinformation or disinformation, whatever the fuck they're calling it nowadays. Mm-hmm. And then come to find out only a year later, then no, it was a real story. So how many of them are going to jail to join Mackey? So none of them. Yeah. So I would say that, and then we had a poll when that came a couple of months ago, or maybe even a half a year ago, when this started to come to fruition, the mainstream media had to start covering it. They took a poll, and 80% of the people that were informed of this said that it would have probably changed their vote. So there's 80% of many people, as opposed to 0% of no people that were affected by that meme. That should be like 700 years for each one of them, right? Because they meddled and we got to keep democracy so sacred. So right. We got to show these people that meddle with these elections. Oh, we aren't going to fart with that anymore. All right.
Right. Yeah. So for, the Mr. Krastensteins of the world that are, law and order, and that's what makes me a good person. If you're keeping track at home, Krastenstein, Trump's opponent in the 2016 election, her campaign itself, fabricated the Steele dossier and made the Russian hoax completely up out of whole cloth, which, with hindsight being 2020, we all now know was completely a hoax. Cite the Mueller report. There was not only no smoke, there was no fire. That was definitely not election interference, or attempted election interference, because it apparently didn't work since she lost anyway. Her whole Pied Piper strategy, again, where they admitted that they wanted to try to accentuate or push the more what they deemed as fringe versions of the Republican Party, personified by Donald Trump, because if we can push the Republicans further to the fringe, it makes that broad middle of the electorate look at us more as a better choice between the lesser of two evils. That ended up backfiring. But again, backfiring or not, that was attempted election interference, at least as attempted as his Twitter jokes that apparently affected nobody's vote. And, like David said, with the 51 intelligence experts that signed the letter that poo-pooed the whole Hunter Biden situation in 2020. Definitely election interference. Absolutely. 110%. No heads rolling on that one. So, again, we talk about principles on this podcast a lot. And the defining feature of principles is that they stay consistent regardless of changing circumstances. So for those of you out there who, this is an attack on our democracy, this next election is the most important, we have to save our democracy. Democracy is sacred. The right to vote is sacred. For you people that spout that as much as you do, and you turn a blind eye to all of those other situations, for those of you keeping track at home, 51 intelligence officials lying to keep something swept under the rug, not election interference, guy sharing a meme on Twitter that affected nobody, definitely election interference. You can see why none of us take any of you seriously,
fuck
right?
That. Trump's Mar-a-Lago, Hillary's emails. There's no comparison. Or, fuck that. Trump's Mar-a-Lago, Joe Biden's
Corvette.
Garage, pretty much.
Unlocked, roofless Corvette.
Yeah, I was cleaning up a mustard stain out of my Corvette with one of these blacked out documents, or whatever you want to call them. I'd spilled ketchup all over myself. And
what's classified mean? Is that Italian?
It smelled something awful. No, so I smelled 5 little girls' heads when I got out. Anywho, all that being said, we don't have to say it anymore. And it's The scary thing is that it's Trump, but it's not. It's Trump, and then there will be somebody else. There's always somebody else. Or if there's no one else, then they've got the game covered and they don't have to do it anymore. So I guess, like I said, let's indict Trump right after we indict Biden, right after we indict Obama, right after we indict both Bushes. Dig up the old man. We'll throw him up on the stand. Don't give a shit. We're getting crazy enough as it is. Bring Clinton back in there too for all the things that he pulled up. Like
every CIA director since ever, every Fed chair, just keep going down the list. Every FBI chief and every FBI agent and every single bureau or department all throughout the country since ever,
And guess what? There was D's and R's in front of all a slew of the different names. So your democracy that's just so sacred to you, they wipe their ass with it every day. So don't buy into their bullshit. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, or don't be surprised when large swaths of the American public just ignore either at best case scenario for you, ignore everything you have to say. And now I'm not just talking to Krassenstein. I'm talking to, the regime apparatchiks whose only modus operandi is to make sure that they stay in power. Is best case scenario for you, large swaths of the population are just going to ignore your dictates. And slightly worse case for you, they do the exact opposite of what you say. And really bad case for you, I'm not going to say it because I want this segment to stay up on YouTube. But I will say,
we're not threatening. Not threatening.
When you tell 70 million Americans, which I think roughly 70 million, maybe a little bit more than that, voted for Trump in 2020. I know it was more than 2016. But when you tell 70 million Americans that for thinking the way they do, or at least voting the way they do, if they give you even the slightest little opportunity to throw them in a cage, you'll do it, while you'll ignore everything that's done that's much worse on your side for your team. Can you really be that surprised that those 70 million people get somewhere on that sliding scale of ignoring you all the way up to the thing that shall not be mentioned? Are you really going to be that surprised? When everything you say loses credibility by the day, if you had any left, are you really going to have anybody to blame at the end of the day but yourselves? Again, I know, like we talked about on 168 last week, that if there's one thing that defines you people, it's completely lack of self-awareness. So what I just said is going to be news to you. It's like coming out of left field. You're like, what? Us? These people are just crazy deplorables. That's why they don't listen to what we have to say. We're the adults. We're the experts. Don't do any research for yourself. We know everything that's best for the world. We're just the ones that ran up 33 trillion in debt, and we're the ones that are constantly regime changing around the world and getting stuck in quagmires and sacrificing millions of people on the altar of Lockheed Martin. We're the ones that know everything to do in every context all the time. And if you don't listen to us, it's because you're a terrible, evil, awful, no good, very bad person.
Well, all those facts.
We know that's the way you think about the world. But just like you were smacked upside of the head out of the blue in 2016 and you never saw the Donald Trump train coming because you dismissed it and downplayed it and thought nobody would vote for him because we've been doing such a great job, you're going to keep getting blindsided. And I can only hope that if there's any sort of cosmic or karmic justice in the universe, that it keeps getting progressively worse for you.
Yeah. Well, with all that being said, Dan, you got any more pithy rejoinders there?
Nope. I've said my piece on that.
All right. Well, on to the main. Vivek outclassing the NPC Karen. God, you hate to love to see it.
Yeah, I know it. On that thread of democracy is sacred, people, I can promise you that the question that was asked of Vivek Ramaswamy at a recent town hall, this lady would be one of those people.
Oh.
Just because of the way she phrased her question, the fact that it sounded like it was a Rachel Maddow line that she just like memorized and regurgitated as if it was her own unique thought, and it was really bright and insightful. I can promise you that this lady has a hard time tying her shoes in the morning.
Well, not just that. I bet she's a real fun one at the parties that she goes to all the time.
Yeah.
I bet she's really fun to have a conversation with. I bet you she's vegan, and I bet you she's one of the vegans that like tells you within the first 10 seconds of her being in there.
Yeah.
Or they can tell you about the atrocities that are happening to this genocide against people that identify as other things at some point and how it's affected her emotionally and how it's really, playing with her mental state. I feel like she's soft to the baby shit. I honestly do. I feel like if you cut her off or cut her in line at the grocery store, she might just break down and start crying right there. Or she's the like 2023 version of that chick when Donald Trump got elected going, she's
exactly that. Yeah.
Yes. She's the new 2023 because she's like she's a different race. And who even knows what color she is? Or not color, but like gender she is.
Yeah.
She could just pick a myriad of them.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that the 2016...
There's a Ukrainian flag in her bio, by the way.
The 2016 version, just by looking at that individual, you knew this woman looked a little bit more.
I'm sure Vivek to himself was going, "Oh fuck, not this chick."
I guess for lack of a better term, normal is what she looked like. But anyway, let's tell the fine people what exactly happened. That's getting us to
I just
rip
want to
on
make
this
fun of her some more.
on this nameless, faceless woman. Because again, we don't know her name and we don't care to. And
she might have been computer generated. We don't know.
Yeah. That's a distinct possibility. If we are living in a simulation, she is NPC numero uno. So a woman confronted Vivek Ramaswamy at a recent town hall meeting. And her question, I'm paraphrasing, but basically attacked him on his lack of experience in the political realm. Because for those of you outside the U.S. who may not be able to distinguish between which politician is doing what in the United States, Vivek is for the first time running for any office, and he's running for president of the United States in the Republican Party. And to her, that's absolutely disqualifying. Not necessarily that he's running the Republican Party, but that he's for the first time running for any office, and that office happens to be the highest office in the land. And her question was rather condescending, as one does, saying that, you don't have any experience, Vivek, and that's what disqualifies you for running. And another thing is, if we, the people, continue to elect unqualified people, then we just get what's coming to us, And there's so much wrong, so very much wrong with her question, not just her condescending tone, not just the fact that it was clearly a canned, memorized line that, again, she saw on Rachel Maddow and that she wanted to pretend was her own unique thought. And she was really sticking it to the man by asking Vivek at this town hall. But it's just not even a remotely useful question, even on the face of it. But before we get into pulling it apart, now that you know what this woman did and why she is deserving of all of the vitriol and ire we've directed her way already in this segment, David, do you have any like immediate takeaways from her dumbass question and just her general off-putting persona?
All that being said, it just seems like a question you don't think of on the spot.
Right.
Like, it was so rehearsed, and the way that she delivered it was so like, I practiced this for hours because I knew I was going to get the mic tonight. And again, I don't know how these town halls are run or if there's any like oversight or anything like that. But to know that you're going to get to ask a question if you put your hand up, that's one thing. Like, I'm sure everybody puts their hand up and only the few get selected. All that being said, the question in and of itself is, don't you think that somebody with more experience should what? There's no tutor program to become a president. There's no you can be a general You can be a representative, or you could be a governor or a mayor. You just have to be a politician? Well, like we said, and like, not to bury the lead anymore with Vivek, I mean, how often do we like those people? Like, how often are we secure with the choices they make in those positions? Like, we have a podcast specifically for calling out all the bullshit that those people do. So if your prerequisite to being a president is to be a lying, cheating scumbag and to be in the pocket of a major corporation, well, shit, I would rather not them be as how did she say? What did she call it? Experienced as the other candidates.
Or yeah, she said something to the effect of like qualified to govern 330 million of us.
Which would beg the question.
Yeah. Which, you were kind of alluding to about, nobody takes a test or, goes to a course to learn how to be president is like the first thing, just on the face of it, the premise of her entire question is so stupid. Because when she says that, you don't have experience, so you're not qualified to govern 330 million of us, well, that presupposes that anybody of the 8 billion souls walking this planet is qualified to govern any other person besides themselves, let alone 330 million people. I can promise you, and F.A. Hayek wrote about this. He wrote an entire book about this called The Fatal Conceit. And what is the fatal conceit? It's the idea that bureaucrats and politicians and experts sitting in a room have enough knowledge to be able to manage and organize and run entire economies full of millions of people thinking and acting for themselves, and operating on different incentives that are unique to everybody, every individual, that's unique to every business they have, every goal they have, what their values are, their hopes, their dreams. It's unique to every individual. So to say that any one person or group of people are qualified to run the lives of 330 million people, it just makes the entire question a non-starter. There is nobody. I don't care if they, are fresh out of the womb or if they've been in politics for 50 or 60 years. There is no person that is qualified intellectually, and I'm not even saying that they're stupid, which most of our politicians are, but intellectually in the sense that they can't have the knowledge to be able to run the lives of 330 million people. But also morally, they're just not qualified to do that. Because again, in order to dictate to 330 million people, even if you wanted to do the best you possibly could for half of that population, in some respects, you're going to have to take from the other half that you're not acting in the best interest of in order to help this half, right? Through taxation or whatever the case may be. So even if we assume that somebody could act and, govern 330 million people, they couldn't do it morally or legitimately because the means don't justify the ends. It's not morally justifiable to take from this group and give to that group. So again, the premise is just wrong. Any way you try to slice this pie, but yet she stands up there and really thinks she said something. She really said some profound insight that really got to the root problem of what's wrong with politics in America.
Ugh. God, where would we be without her?
I know, right?
Like asking the hard-hitting questions.
Yeah.
Did she get a post on Dateline after that? What about 2020?
She should.
At least The View, right?
She's a real brainiac.
She would fit right in on that dais, let me tell you. Holy bunch of cackling hens that shout at each other about more. You're not liberal. I was the most liberal. But anyway, sorry. That particular television program just.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
Anyway, but yes. So have we even do you want to get into what his response was?
Well, I think so. We have one more thing to point out about her question, and then we'll get into his response.
Oh,
so in addition to having a screwed up premise, is even if we grant the premise and we say, all right, your question is valid, both intellectually and morally, the next supposition of the question is that history started yesterday. And by that, I mean, when she makes the statement that if we keep electing unqualified people, now again,
you mean like Joe Biden?
Yeah.
She didn't. I know who you're talking about.
Right. She didn't say the name Trump in her question, but we knew exactly that her question was directed at that. Because again, these people are so binary in their thinking. Everything is either pro-Trump or anti-Trump. So when she makes the statement of, if we, the voters, keep voting for unqualified people, then we deserve whatever we get, right? She is trying to put forth as a presupposition that everything was just going swimmingly up until 2016.
Oh, yeah.
And we elected somewhat insanely, we elected a reality TV show host, and that's where everything really started going bad.
Fun fact, Dane, cancer didn't even exist until
2016. I know.
2016.
And he started coming down that elevator. People started dropping like flies.
Sunburns, Dane?
Not a thing.
Weren't a thing.
Not a thing.
Global climate change? Not a factor.
Yep.
None of these things were happening. World, like a 20-year war? Never happened.
Not happening. We talk all the time about the devaluation of the dollar since 1913. Of the 97, 98% that it's worth today, of what a dollar was worth then, 95% of that total reduction had happened by 2016. But not in her worldview. No, everything was perfect.
Another phrase that people like her would say to people like us?
What?
I have a feeling, like her ilk. You can't vote for a third party because that's throwing your vote away.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So this person that's so educated, that's so intellectual, that's challenging Vivek because he doesn't even have a fucking resume for this goddamn job. Well, you have been voting in the two parties that have been running this country forever. And over the last 50 years, well, since it has been running this country since its inception, shall we say, and in some shape, form, or fashion. And over the last 50 years, I'm being generous here, you just mentioned it, the dollar has died.
Dollar has died. War has been incessant. The standard of living has dropped. Go on and on.
Sunburns exist now.
All under the watchful eye of the experts and the qualified, long-tenured politicians.
So much so that now people that are making art, well, let's just call a spade, the millennial generation that's making more than their predecessors did, or at least on par with what their predecessors did, can't afford a home, can't afford to live. Their prices of food are going up. Their prices of gasoline are going up. The price of a child is going up. In child rearing, insurance, health, you name it. It is more expensive today than it ever was, and less people are able to afford it. Thank you, Bidenomics. So, with all that being said, we were electing all the people that had the resumes for the job before. How did they get us here? With great leadership?
Yeah.
So, again, let's bring it up one more time, just in case we have a first-time viewer here somewhere. Hopefully we do. Welcome. What's the definition of insanity again?
Yeah. Doing the same thing again and again, expecting different results. And, if you're keeping track at home, I'm now on my third granting of her argument just for the sake of it, to then completely destroy the argument, just to show you the layers of how stupid her comment was. Is even if we assume that everything was going perfectly until 2016 and Donald Trump is where it all went wrong, I'm sure with that viewpoint of we the people just need to elect better, more qualified people and everything will be great, she's firmly entrenched in the democracy is sacred camp. But again, if your system is so fragile that the people making a grand mistake one time for 4 years can topple the whole damn thing, such that, in your words, we deserve whatever we get, I suggest to you that your system is not very strong, not that robust, not something that's worth saving. So, again, if you're looking for we the people being at fault for who rules this place and what happens to us because of the people we elect, look in the mirror. You've been voting for the strongly resumed, expert, establishment people for your entire life.
Looks good on TV.
I imagine.
Maybe you'd have a beer with them.
And all the things that David just mentioned about how much of a shit show we are really living in right now. Again, history did not start in 2016. So if you're wondering what we the people deserve based on our voting habits, start with numero uno. Look in the mirror and realize that your attitude, and that's even really just the cherry on top of this entire thing. And again, we talk about politicians not having self-awareness. NPC voters like her are completely lacking in self-awareness because she'll continue to vote for the lesser of two evils, like David was mentioning. And all along the way, 5-6 decades later, we're much, much worse off than we were. And she'll just be looking around saying, I don't know how this happened. If everybody would have voted like me, it would be better.
Ugh.
I mean,
would we have cheese parties with our 18 cats? Does that sound fun, Dane?
Yeah.
Is that your form of better? Would we have real live action of King Arthur in the park? Will we does that sound like a fun Saturday afternoon?
Yeah.
You know what's cool about humans? Is we're all different. We've all got different interests. And guess what? If your democracy is so sacred, like we said before, you should hero another person that's running for presidency. And then, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and assume that she's a little more left-leaning. Vivek Ramaswamy.
I mean, she was at a unless she was planting herself. She was at a Republican town hall, so maybe she's just like a never Trumper. That's probably my guess of what she is.
There's not a lot of never Trumpers.
Which, they're just liberals in Republican clothing.
Right.
But, yeah.
But he checks all the Democratic boxes.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a woman. Well, he's not a woman. Shit. But he is
non-binary.
He is not Caucasian. I'm not going to jump to which what his genealogy is.
He follows in their whole Fresh Olympics.
Yeah, of course. He suits, and just like Tulsi Gabbard did. She looked the exact part that they wanted. She was a woman. She had an ethnic background that was not Caucasian. She was a leader. We've mentioned her.
She was in the good guy party. She was a Democrat.
She was in the party. But then again,
she was in favor of universal health care.
She had all the prerequisites. She had all of them.
She was anti-war, which you people used to be, not too long ago.
Because she served in one.
Until that unqualified guy came in 2016 and was the first president since Jimmy Carter not to start a new war. Then you guys all of a sudden stopped being anti-war. Isn't that weird how that works out? Anyway, I digress.
I don't think they think that deep. I don't think they go meta. I think they stay pretty surface level with a lot of their thoughts, which is why
as if her question didn't confirm it.
Problems with their ideology.
Yeah. So, but anyway, to close out this segment, because David was asking a second ago, and we definitely wanted to get to. So, after all of this, what was Vivek's response? And again, you've heard us talk about him on this podcast. We're generally in favor of him. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm a big fan. I don't know how David feels or anything like that.
Vivek! I've got it painted on my chest. You just can't see it.
But I definitely have no problem saying this, that of the current bunch of people running for the Republican nomination, Vivek is far and away the best option, and it's not particularly close. That's the way I feel about it. But anyway, I was a little bit dissatisfied with Vivek's response because he gave the politician response, which was the same response that Trump gave in 2016 when he was asked similar questions about his qualifications and stuff like that. And Vivek responded with, hey, listen, the rest of these politicians with their long resumes and long careers of
of serving you, the people, they're beholden to their donors. And listen, I'm independently wealthy. I don't need the donors' money. I can speak truth to power because I'm not beholden to anybody. And so that's what makes makes up for my lack of experience, and maybe even makes me better. I'm paraphrasing him, but maybe even makes me better than these, qualified, allegedly long tenured politicians, is because I'm not beholden to special interests. I'm going to do what's in the best interest of you, the American people, because I answer only to myself.
I liked it.
Yeah. Now, again, that is a fair response, and that's perfectly fine. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that response. However, in my opinion, that response doesn't get at the root of the problem of her question. Because again, when she's saying qualified to govern 330 million people, she's implying that anybody in an office like president or any other office of power within the United States government, federal or otherwise, has moral and legitimate authority to rule over 330 million people. Let's assume we could elect an angel to the office of president, a perfect being that would not intentionally go out of their way to harm anybody. Even in that scenario, there is no moral legitimacy in the office itself. The exercise of power by itself, as we just said a second ago, requires infringing on the rights of some in order to help others. You're not going to universally legislate on behalf of all 330 million people because, again, every single one of the 330 million people has different hopes, different dreams, different access to resources, different everything. They're as unique as the individual themselves. And by that very nature, you cannot fit one policy that is going to help all 330 million people, unless that policy is, I'm going to leave everybody alone. But again, that's never what they're running for. They're running to take the reins of power, and then they think, based on their morals and values and virtues and everything else like that, that they know what's best for the American people. They're going to put the policies forward that's going to help the most people. It's not going to help all 330 million, but maybe it'll help, 250 to 300 million people. That is the root of the problem. The idea that there is any moral legitimacy in government, period. Because if we are going to accept reality for what it is, and sometimes bad people might get that office. Sometimes if you're in her worldview, it's Donald Trump. Or sometimes if you're in the super far left worldview and everybody that isn't them is a Nazi, then sometimes a Hitler gets elected to that office. Maybe they cheat to get there, but the point is the system doesn't have 1,000% batting record of keeping people like that out of power. And in that scenario, what do you want your government to look like? You want it to be as neutered and powerless as possible. Because if a bad person, an irresponsible, an immoral, a virtueless person gets that seat, you want them to be able to create the minimum amount of damage possible. And how do you do that? You remove the power from the office before they ever even get there. That's the root of the problem. And that, in my opinion, should have been Vivek's
answer. It's a very
answer.
Game of Thrones take.
Yeah.
The problem
the hero of Game
of
the hero of Game of Thrones was the dragon by burning the throne down. That's the problem. If you attack it at the root, you reduce the power of government. In my view, it should be zero. There should be no government, but I know I'm a very, very small minority there. But if you reduce the power of government simply to what some people call the night watchman state, the one that basically watches the wall, makes sure nobody attacks you, make sure that you're not attacking each other, but other than that, just has a hands-off approach to everything. Even if that's the state that you wanted, that would be infinitely more legitimate and worthy of somebody getting elected to that office than what it is today, where somebody can press a button and basically vaporize the entire planet in an instant. That's not a position that anybody's qualified to have. It doesn't matter how long they've been on this earth.
No one man should have all that power. Thank you, Yeezy. Yeah, I don't. And again, This democracy is sacred, crew. If you ever, and I know I've said it before on this podcast, but I'm going to say it again, needed any more information than the president isn't actually the president, I submit to you our current president, who, if he dressed himself, would come out in a Power Rangers t-shirt and what little Daisy Dukes. Let's call him Daisy Dukes.
You're assuming he's cool enough to be into the Power Ranger.
Tube socks.
Power Rangers.
Tube socks with sandals.
Oh, he definitely do that.
Oh,
and
he's
the Daisy
tube
Dukes.
socking and sandling up, which would explain why he would trip on the stairs going upwards. But anyway,
Birkenstocks. Probably.
You think he's pulling the levers. If you do, I do feel sorry for you, because that is not what's happening. And again, if you think, like Dane said, one person for 4 years can undo 200 plus years of history, well, then maybe it needed to be undone. Maybe it wasn't as strong as we believed. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and not necessarily let it all fall apart like Dane would like to see, and like us just be governless. Just look at the system, see where the flaws are, see where the holes are, and fix them. We're not, and it's so commonplace. Another thing about what Vivek said is like, no one gasped when he said all of your representatives are bought and paid for. It's a known fact.
Everybody, yeah.
We have politicians like Nancy Pelosi and fucking Chuck Schumer and fucking what's the dipshit from Carolina? I always say his name, Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
We have Glitch McConnell. They're all participating in insider trading. If any one of us on the outside of Capitol Hill did that shit, we're in federal prison. These fuckers are doing it, and the meek little posit that we put is maybe every now and again a reporter goes, "Hey, do you guys think you should not insider trade anymore because it's a conflict of interest?" And all they have to do is Nancy Pelosi pushes the mic away, and that's it. That's discussion over. She's not going to be brought to justice. Nobody else is going to be brought to justice. So what is this bitch actually talking about? Why is she worried about anything? This thing is operating just fine, no matter who you vote in. And that's the crux of the matter. That's the real problem. Is what she should have asked is, how the fuck do we make this government actually a feasible government again? Not, are you fit to play the most popular person in America for 4 years? I think not. Fuck you. Yeah. Ask a better question next time, Nancy Drew.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
So anyway, Dane, where can they find this wonderful Halloween episode of Weapons of Meme Destruction? Or did I cut you off? Did you have more to say?
No. I was just going to say, I hope that your Halloween is spookier than, being locked in a cage for memes or, spinning times in this.
It's a very real probability for us.
In this lady's cobweb-filled skull. Hard to believe that it will be scarier than either one of those two things, but I hope for you it is, and you have a wonderful holiday season.
We murdered those segments.
Yes, killed them. With that being said, we are, or you can find episode 169 at wdpodcast.com/169. You can get the audio only on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can get the video on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. I believe this will be our first episode since like 163 or 4 that is up in its full glory on YouTube. So you're welcome, YouTube listeners, but go over to Rumble and Odyssey.
Please.
That was too
dictator.
It was too commanding.
It was very dictatorial.
I apologize. I am not
one
of the qualified people running for office. If you would be so kind to head on over to Rumble and Odyssey, like, subscribe, and share there, because again, we may not be long for this world on YouTube. We would appreciate it. But while you're here, while you're there, or anywhere in between, like, subscribe, share, get in the comments, tell us how much you like David's Freddy Krueger shirt over there.
This is not a Freddy Krueger shirt. It just so happened to be
kind of Freddy Krueger-ish.
It's not but it did turn out to be that way.
Red and black horizontal stripes is...
I know. Talk to the shirt manufacturer that made it.
Anywho,
I didn't buy it from a Spirit Halloween shop. That's
tell
for
David
goddamn
how
sure.
much you just like everything about his general aura and
By the way,
and
Freddie
existence.
wore a sweatshirt. By the way,
I know, but it's color scheme, David, patterns.
you're a pattern.
Okay.
You ever think about that?
Anyway, yes, Freddie was not as jacked as David, so he didn't have the cause
Don't
to
try to
show off
climb
his
back onto
muscles.
my good side, you son of a bitch. Shots were already fired.
You can also link up with us on Twitter, or sorry, X, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X. I need to quit apologizing. I'll just use them interchangeably. You know,
They know what
I
you're
like.
talking about. Yeah.
And you can link up with us on our private members only Facebook page at $5 a month or more of support. Just search or just donate to Weapons and Meme Destruction over on our Support Our Work tab on the website, and then ask to join the group on Facebook, and we will let you in. And then
The password is taco.
yes, we are gatekeeping because yes, we are trying to keep crazy people out
We
of
don't
the
trust
group.
you, motherfuckers.
It is called the Sane Space for a reason, and I can promise you that the chick that asked Vivek that question is not getting in the group.
There's a questionnaire, you sons of bitches.
Unless she gives us $5 a month because our principals are financially dependent.
just like on Capitol Hill.
Exactly.
Oh my God, we're what we hate.
You want to be friends with us?
We've become
Pay us.
the thing we hate.
But also join the email list, wmdpodcast.com. On the homepage, click on the button to join the email list. You definitely want to stay in contact with us there. You also want to get on the automated text service list at 610-596-WMDP, 610-596-9637. Text anything you want. Text your name, text Spooktober, text Dane and David had awesome masks to start off this episode.
What
Text
masks?
Dane is just generally a pleasant person to listen to and be around.
A kind young fellow.
Text us anything you want. Most importantly, you'll get on that list and you'll have real-time, up-to-date news about the podcast, merchandise links, everything else like that. And while I'm on that, head to the merch store, buy some stuff, donate some Bitcoin at our Bitcoin wallet. All of this stuff can be found down below in the show notes under these videos or underneath the audio wherever you're listening to or watching us. And that's how you can stay in contact, support the show. And most importantly, just tell your friends and family about us. Wow, I talk too much.
It's all right.
It's a problem.
We need to hire those guys at the end of commercials.
I'm going to. I need to enroll in TA. Talkers Anonymous.
Results may vary. Don't consult your doctor before you ask for Yeah. So, well, with all that being said, Dane Wise Gamgee, and you beautiful listeners, have a fun, semi-safe, very exciting Halloween. Eat all that candy. Don't brush your teeth. Tell your mom to go kick rocks. All right. It's the one night a week or one night a year you can be an absolute cretin or whatever you want to call it. But other than that, guys, stay safe. But more importantly, stay free.